The Naira exchange rate against the United States dollar has sustained its rally as it appreciated to a 7-month high to close at 1,000 Naira to a dollar on the parallel market. On the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange (NAFEM) official window yesterday, also, the Naira extended its upward trend, maintaining its 1-month gain as it closed at 1,136 Naira, 0.04 Naira to a dollar, gaining 6 Naira 32 kobo compared to the 1,142 Naira 38 kobo to a dollar it closed on Friday. The national currency's appreciation came as the National Bureau of Statistics disclosed that the Consumer Price Index, which measures the rate of change in prices of goods and commodities, further increased to 33.20% in March 2024 compared to 31.70% in February. The appreciation recorded by the Naira against the greenback on the parallel market marked the first time the Naira reached this level since September 26, 2023. Right, shall we rejoice, celebrate this news, or is there still a lot of work ahead?
So, cautious optimism. I have always argued in defense of our currency because every country defends their currency. And I can go way back historical times. I can tell you about Black Wednesday, I mean, in 92 in England, when England came out of the ERM, the rate mechanism, there was a certain trader called George Soros that had a run against the pound sterling. And the British, bank then, the Bank of England, had expended over close to 14 billion pounds in a day to be able to hedge against the currency, but they lost in the war against George Soros. And that's why forex traders tell the story about George Soros, the man that broke the Bank of England and made $1 billion in a day. I can also go memory lane to the 60s when America had to give Britain some amount of money to be able to ensure that there was a level of parity amongst their currencies. So every nation defends their currencies. Even now, recent historical time, America has had to intervene in the market to ensure its currency stabilizes. But you do that with the understanding of how can you bring about productive sustainability. So my problem we're having here is we're flushing a lot of hot money in the system. We're selling a lot of bonds at high interest rate. Nigeria bonds are cash cows now. I hear most of the Goldman Sachs traders are just sitting and cashing in on Nigeria bonds. They're having a great time. That's why you see Goldman Sachs has been praising us a lot lately. Nigeria is the best thing ever.
Yes,
because their traders are cashing in on our bond market. The bond bill is about $1 trillion as we speak now. And it's even going to go further than that because we've raised interest rates and the bond market is sweet market for them. So Goldman Sachs will say any good thing about us now because they're making money from us. But all of this is hot money. The question is, how can we bring foreign direct investments, not those portfolios investment that's slushing and out? Yeah, portfolio investment, we're able to get all this money, if you inject in the currency, we're able to get the market down. But how can you sustainable? Year on year, for a couple of years now, you've not had investment in the oil sector. That used to be one of our major foreign direct investment areas. Those in the oil sector can correct me if I'm wrong. I think since the time of the Engina project, we've not had any other major project like that. We need to get more investment in our oil sector. We need to open it up. You can see that most of the majors are leaving. They're going into the deeper waters. How can we then also get cash from other means? President Tinubu went out recently and he said there's been some promises, 13 or 14 billion. I hope those monies too should be able to come into the economy so that we have viability. So, like Peter Obi keeps saying, production. Until we get to that place, we will not be able to adequately strengthen our currency. This defense, it will get to a point where we start to ask ourselves questions. My argument before has always been defend till you get the fundamentals right. So the fundamentals, getting the fundamentals right are what I'm talking about now. As regards ensuring foreign direct investments, more sustainable money in the economy, productive activities that will make people earn money and earn dollars, because manufacturing companies are suffering. Nigerian breweries had to go, are telling their shareholders that they want to go to the market again to go get about, I think, 600 billion or thereabout for capital injection because the markets are dire. We need, Sanofi is scaled down activities. We need to be able to now get viable, sustainable money. That's what I mean by getting the fundamentals right every time. But it's a good one.
Okay, let's cut through the chase. And this is it. What we're dealing with. The newspapers are reporting that Naira has appreciated and that it is now 1,000 naira to the dollar. Well, many years back, it used to be 150 naira to the dollar. So if the Tinubu administration, if they think they have done something significant, well, perhaps it's not significant enough. Even at 1,000 naira to the dollar, we're still at the deep end of it. And prices have not come down. Some economists have said, oh, it's called a lag effect. Okay, this drop in the this appreciation of the Naira, can they sustain it? The major challenge for the Tinubu administration will be to sustain it. That is what is important. If they don't sustain it, we will be celebrating 1,000 naira to the dollar in the parallel market, and then much later, we'll be back to square one. Sustaining it is important. I've made a point here that we have used the same strategy before in the past. That strategy failed somewhere down the line. Can they take a look at what it is that makes the monetary policy, problematic? That is the big assignment that Yemi Cardoso and the president have. That's one about that, to just be very clear about some of these issues. The second issue has to be this inflation report. Now CPI is now 33.20%, up from 31.7% in February, which means that inflation is worse. Now, if you look at the inflation figures released by the Bureau of National Statistics, they are telling us that food inflation went down. Urban inflation rose. Rural inflation rose. But this food inflation that they are talking about, and they are referencing, Bonvita, yam, tuber, other tubers, and all of that. Please, I don't know. I go to the market. I make it a point of duty, when I can, to go to the market myself. And it's not a joke. I go to the market. So which price has dropped? Food inflation. And that's why we ask the question about statistics. Where is MBS getting their data from? And they are saying that food inflation has dropped. Which food inflation has dropped? In this Lagos, where we have markets that people like us go to. I go there, I meet people. We buy crayfish, we buy, okra, we buy goat head, and we buy things together. Nothing has dropped, at least in the markets that I visit. So I don't know where they are getting their data from. But however, in a contradicting manner, the same National Bureau of Statistics tells us that urban inflation has risen. Rural inflation has risen. So cumulatively, headline inflation has risen. Now, one of the major challenges that the Tinubu administration has to address is to bring down the cost of living. We are facing in Nigeria today a cost of living crisis. The other time when President Tinubu was in Lagos, and he went to worship in the Central Mosque. The people who lined the streets, and they were telling him, we are hungry, in Yoruba language. When he came back for this Eid al-Fitr language, he didn't go to the same location. He went to Dolphin Estate playing ground, where he knows that the people in Ikoyi, gentrified populace, will not have they will not have the tendency to come and beg for food. But he himself must realize that there's hunger in the land. That's what the statistics is saying. The ordinary man does not know anything about dollar has gone down. It's now 1,000 naira to the dollar. No. The ordinary man of Nigeria is not spending dollar. is interested in the Naira, as I am. We are looking for the Naira. So let them put Naira in our pockets so that we can survive. That's the number one economy issue that the Tinubu administration must address.
Naira in our pocket until we begin to feel the impact of the policies. I don't think a number of Nigerians will praise this news. But, I mean, starting off on a very good news this morning. By the way, Dr. Bati, the only food item I know for a fact that they say had reduced was a particular brand of noodles. Aside from that, everything that has gone up has remained up. You know, as they say in Nigeria, whatever goes up doesn't come down, especially when it comes to food prices. So, in terms of...
Well, I don't know the markets you go to. Maybe you go to some markets.
Dr. Bati, I saw you one of the markets I go to. I saw you there. And I was quite surprised to see that you were there too. So I can testify to that. But I mean, truthfully, that what would be important to understand would be the indices that was used to measure perhaps the food inflation. Year on year, food inflation went up 40% this year to about 25% last year, March of 2023. But in terms of the months, the rate of inflation, food inflation, was said to have decreased by about maybe 1% or about 3.79% actually. So there are concerns around that, because if we release figures like this and it doesn't paint a true picture of what Nigerians are facing in terms of their reality, then there's a disconnect or there's something, there. Now, in terms of...
okay, yes.
Oh, no, please go ahead. You can...
No, I wanted the Rufai to sing. You know,
no, you sing at the end of...
I wanted to recommend a song to President Tinubu.
Please, you sing that.
No. Ọkùnrin kígbe, obìnrin kígbe, kálukú ọ̀kígbe owó. That's the song.
Go ahead.
I have to, okay, please translate.
There's no money in town.
There's no money in town. Things are hard.
No, but you said the
men are crying, the women are crying. Okay, everybody's crying for money.
All right, so let me just finish on this note. I was just going to say that with regards to the strengthening of the Naira, a number of things can be attributed to this in the immediate. We have seen a number of policies introduced by the CBN governor, and we must talk about that, because when they were introduced, it was like, oh, would it work, would it not work? Yes, we talked about sustainability and how long the effect of these policies will last, but in the interim, it seems to be doing some form of magic. But 1,000 Naira, and that's why I asked the question earlier on, that should we celebrate, or is it not yet time to celebrate? Because if we're looking at 1,000 Naira to $1 and we're happy about that, then that's a far cry from where we're coming from, even from the start of this administration. So a lot of work still to be done, but at least it's good news to see that rather than it escalating and the free fall we experienced earlier this year, then it's good news. Two things. One is was the announcement of the selling of forex to BDCs. Last week we discussed that. It said perhaps to have made a mark in the outcome of the strengthening of the Naira. The second are policies like, the backlogs have been cleared, those that were authenticated. There's still conversations around that. That is said to also have an impact on that, raising the basis points. Now, two things I was supposed to do was to address the free fall of the Naira and to tame inflation. It hasn't been able to tame inflation, as we see the results from the NPS, but it has been able to, at least to some measure, to some level, strengthen the Naira, because people have less money to perhaps spend, and they're saving more and investing a bit more with bonds and treasury bills. So let's see how that works out.
Before you take the next story.
Yes, sir.
That's Victor Olaiya.
Oh.
Okay.
For copyright reasons.
Okay.
Victor Olaiya's classic. Maybe somebody should play it to President Tinubu.
All right, so we want food on our table. That's the summary of what Nigerians are crying for. Not the figures, not the numbers, not the headlines, but food, affordable, quality food on the table of Nigerians. Move on to our next story as we focus on the international scene. Israeli Army Chief of Staff on Monday said that Iran will face the consequences for its actions after its weekend unprecedented attack on Israel. Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi's video statement came amid calls for restraint by allies anxious to avoid an escalation of conflict in the Middle East. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu summoned his war cabinet for the second time in less than 24 hours to weigh in on how to react to Iran's first ever direct attack on Israel, a government source said. Wary of open warfare between Israel and Iran, President Joe Biden told Netanyahu the United States will not take part in any Israeli counteroffensive against Iran, officials said on Sunday.
Over the weekend, Iran launched a large-scale attack on Israel. Over 350 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, armed drones, and rockets were fired from Iranian soil, as well as Iraq, Yemen, and Lebanon, towards the State of Israel. Across the skies of the Middle East, a coalition was activated to counter this attack, marking the start of the IDF's Operation Iron Shield. The Israel Defense Forces, together with the United States Central Command, the British and the French armed forces, and other partners, operated together in real time in the air, on the ground, and at sea. Defense systems were activated, the threats were intercepted, and Iran's attack on Israel failed. Operation Iron Shield proved the strength of our ironclad cooperation. I want to thank all our international partners who stood up to Iran's aggression. Iran's attack has created new opportunities for cooperation in the Middle East. We are closely assessing the situation. We remain at our highest level of readiness. Iran will face the consequences for its actions. We will choose our response accordingly.
All right. So, a response imminent from Israel to Iran, Rufai?
Dr. Bati has pushed me where I don't like to go. I don't like to, because when I start singing, I don't stop. So I'm going to sing a song for Israel. And my grandma, God bless her soul, Abeni, she's from Ijesha. So there's a song the Ijesha people normally sing when they are warning you. When they are warning you not to go on a war, that you'll be disgraced. So they say, Weleju yao, Oyaramura ogun, Weleju yao. What it means is, you'll be disgraced. You'll be disgraced. You're so quick to war, you'll be disgraced. I think that's the song we have to sing for Israel. At first, Iran did not attack you with intent of escalation. They attacked you, they informed the Americans. The Americans shielded you. You had no impact as a result of the attack, except for the shrapnel that killed a 7-year-old in the desert, in the Negev desert. The air base in the desert has started working again. And these same allies that protected you, let me not even escalate this, Ayo. Do you know all the enemies of Israel were part of the protection? Even Saudi Arabia was part of those that shared intelligence to protect Israel in that attack. All your enemies, all the Arab nations protected you because nobody wanted an escalation. After they had made things easy for you, you suffered no impact, no damage. Even the Jordanians worked in favor of Israel. Now, you are saying you want to go ahead. And your allies, the Americans of this world, are telling you that, please, you don't need this. We don't need to escalate things. Exercise restraints. So I think Netanyahu should watch it. Like the Jeshas will say, Weleju yao, Oyaramura ogun, Weleju yao. You might be disgraced, you might be disgraced. You're so quick to war, you might be disgraced.
Okay, go fine. Since you are in a musical, theatrical mood, you are talking about a song. Yami Abeni, Aterere Kariaye, Pavisi. There is also another song in Olarochimi's Konome. It says, when the tortoise is going on a senseless journey,
not until
you say, not until I am disgraced. Not until I have been disgraced. That's from theater, you know, Konome by Olarochimi. However, what is the big issue here with regard to Israel? Israel is insisting on its right to self-defense. And we got the major affirmation yesterday from Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, who was shown there, saying that Israel is going to retaliate. Now the Americans are about to revise their position a little bit to say, yes, Israel, you know, has the right to self-defense. What nobody can determine right now is the scale of it. and how it will turn out. Now, the UK is also under pressure to blacklist, to label the Iran Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist group. Over 50 MPs are putting pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Both Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, who is on his way to Israel as you speak, they're both trying to see how they can mitigate the situation. The G7 nations are talking about sanctions. They say Iran will be sanctioned. But what everybody should know is that, look, in geopolitics, in international relations, for Iran to have taken the decision to retaliate over the April 1 attack on their consulate in Damascus, they themselves are ready for war. Now, what Rishi Sunak is saying seems to me to be the intelligent thing in the matter. The people are telling Mr. Sunak to close down, to shut down diplomatic relations with Iran. They may be wrong. He and Lord Cameron are both saying that, no, we have to keep that diplomatic channel open because that's the only way we can, prevent an escalation. But can they prevent an escalation? This is what the world has to worry about. And it's not something in which we can distance ourselves. One, if Iran decides that it wants to go to war and cause World War III, there will be serious implications. They will shut down the Strait of Hormuz, as I pointed out yesterday. That will drive up energy issues. Three, Western countries, including the G7 countries, they will go into recession. Three, the world will be in a worse place. And I also posed the question yesterday, where is the United Nations? Where is the United Nations Security Council? What has happened to the push for global peace? These are the theoretical issues from the perspectives of international law and law of armed conflict and peace and security in the world.
Well, Dr. Batiwai's United Nations was Fela that sang the song, Waiting United for United.
You're also in a singing mood.
You all...
Who unites for
United Nations? So it's a big question, and you've spoken about this a number of times and posed the question to Ambassador Joe Keshi yesterday that, is it time to look for another option? It looks like United Nations is not quite uniting nations at this time. And, as everyone has said, who will speak to Benjamin Netanyahu, or who will Netanyahu listen to? And this is a challenge with having a leader who is alone to himself and just has a thirst for war and just wants to get things done in the way that he feels it should be done. How can your major allies keep encouraging, exercise restraint? They spent about 800 million pounds to defend Israel over the last few days against the drone attacks from Iran, ensuring that it had little or, in fact, very negligible impact. Well, the death of anyone is not negligible, but very minimal impact compared to what would have been if that attack or the launch was successful. Nevertheless, Israel is coming out with their guns blazing, saying that they're going to protect themselves, this is self-defense, and they've classed it as a terrorist attack against them from Iran. And so these are conversations. I don't know to what extent that, Lord Cameron's trip to Israel will make. He's made that trip before, and it didn't seem to make a lot of impact. So again, all eyes on Israel. But very importantly, America looks to be very reluctant to go into any kind of offensive. They've even actually stated it very clearly that they will protect Israel, stand with Israel, but they will not be willing to launch an attack against Iran. Let's hope that Netanyahu will see reason, have some sense, and bring this to, there shall be some sort of ceasefire in Israel. Again, like has been mentioned, the impact not just on Israel and the Western world, but around the world would be, very significant. So I'm hoping that America, the UK, who have stood solidly with Israel, would finally be able to speak some sense to Netanyahu. And of course, hopefully that will change.